Hi everyone, in today's video we are diving in an exciting update in the open source world free video generation tool called LTX 0.9.6. This version just dropped a couple of weeks ago and promised like some really big improvement compared to the 0.9.5, and I'm very curious to put it onto the test against 1.2.1, the 480p version and the 720p version, which are basically the two of my favorite ones. If you haven't seen the video where I compare all the 1.2.1 models, check out the video above. We will also in this video compare it with the pay version, which is Adobe Firefly. We will test those different tools with 3 different images, with different size of buildings, different lighting, different weather, because I just really wanted to see how those differences could affect the models. So there will be 3 different images, and we'll go through the quality of the results, but also processing speed and the prompt understanding. And if you're interested about checking out in more detail all the prompts, all the script that I put in Config UI, I'll put everything available for my Patreon for download. You just need to download it and just drop whatever script you want in Config UI, and then you can just have all my prompt ready and you can just tweak it the way you want it and update the input image to do your own video. With no further ado, let's jump into it. Okay, so in this one, we're looking at more like a brick context based on Soho in Manhattan, with a ground level. It's probably a shop thing, and then above it could be something different or the extension of the shop. There are like some odd stuff in this image. I mean, like this box there on the right hand side, which just probably needs a bit of end painting to just get rid of it. And then, you know, there are like some interesting stuff that's happening at the top, but somehow in the middle part of the image is a bit odd. So there's probably like some post-production work that would be needed. And one of the things that I wanted to try is just having the snow. And then for this one, I wanted to try a different type of shot, which is basically like a drone shot, where we're just looking at having the drone on the ground and then just slowly sort of lift up. And I think the first one, probably my least favorite, is still LTX 0.9.5, where it actually does a good job. I found overall the quality is not bad. The only thing is like the prompt understanding is very off, like it just goes backwards. And it's interesting because I've been trying Sora from OpenAI, and it actually generates similar shots, so where the camera goes away, and I'm like, doesn't make any sense. But I don't know if there's something in the prompt that sort of trigger this movement, but it just feels like it was a bit off. So I had to I tried a couple and it just didn't really work out very well. The next one is 1.2.1 Q4 and 4080p. And the reason for this one is that it just didn't quite move. Like it sort of slightly moved in, which could be quite an interesting shot for architecture, but it's not what I asked. And so I think in terms of prompt understanding, I feel it was a bit off. Q4 was a bit off. Then I would say Q8 actually from 1. So Q8 number 3 in the 3rd position. And the reason is it actually started very well and very nicely. So it just sort of start with the image, and then it's got like this actually really nice movement of camera, like a drone shot camera. And then I should have stopped after like 3 seconds, so to probably 2 seconds, because after the 2 seconds, the last 2 seconds, so the first 2 seconds are good, and the last 2 seconds is just merged into this like sort of cake of architecture and colors and artificial lights and frozen glass. So nothing really exciting for Q8. So it wasn't quite there. And then surprisingly enough, or like, you know, very happy to see that. I mean, it's really good. Is the ITX, the new ITX, and I was amazed. I think it was also one of my first shots. So when you know, when you heard like prompt understanding is very good for this one, it's true. Like this is great. Like this is just sort of like a lift off of a drone following the same sort of building, and I found it's brilliant. It works very well, and then it sort of stop and then go back. But prompt understanding is great. Reconstitution of what's happening behind is still bit of work, but this is a 5-minute video, so same level as like, you know, something you might wait for in a cloud-based paid cloud-based version. So yeah, 5 minutes, and on the locally on the 4090 is actually really good. Like, it's just very impressive results. So I was really happy with this. So definitely number 2 for this one. And I guess my ultimate favorite as well, still. And again, I'm not sponsored by Adobe Firefly to do these videos, but I think overall I saw the camera movement quite interesting. The interesting with Firefly is it was actually able to focus on one part of the building, and the camera was like sort of lifting up. So the drone was lifting up from there, which is really good and quite interesting sort of shot. The only thing that is a bit odd, it feels like the chimney is this chimney that's supposed to be on the in the background, on the building in the background, is actually coming with us on the journey to lift off, which make it a bit odd because I don't think we would want to see a chimney of this type on top of this type of building. Okay, so now looking at this example with this image, it's sort of an interior space office, probably in New York. There's a bit of brick, could be in Europe actually, for a bit of a change. And then yeah, sort of interior timber, a nice morphing shape, with probably like a aluminium cladding, I would say, on the outside, even though there's no joint, so it's actually quite amazing type of material. And then so yeah, very calm interior. And then what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to do a pan left or a pan right, doesn't matter, but I just try to keep the camera still and just move, okay, so from one side or from the other side. Now, I got some mixed results, to be honest. Let's have a look first, probably at my least favorite, which is LTX 0.9.5. I've done a lot of different options just because you can actually do a lot of options with it because it's quite fast and quite efficient. And then this one was really like nothing was really moving. It feels like the model didn't really understand what movement the camera needed to have, and so it didn't quite work as well. And then I try 2.1 and then the Q4 version, same idea. It's just sort of stuck there and it just didn't quite get the movement that it needs to have. So I have like some really static camera, and then I got to Q8 and then same idea. I just couldn't really get it to move. So instead of the camera moving, Q8 done something quite interesting or quite unexpected, which is basically morphing those holes in the facade and the geometry, which actually looks quite cool at the end. I thought it's just like it's a nice morphing, but I wish it would be like maybe first image and last image and then we had the morphing in between, but it just doesn't do what I do. So in terms of prompt understanding of what I wanted to do here with the camera movement, it just didn't get it. And so surprisingly enough, and actually I was super happy with the LTX, the new LTX. So again, I think in terms of prompt understanding, it's amazing. I think it got it straight away. I think I have only one iteration of it. I just put it in and it just generated. So really impressive and quite surprising. The second part, now that the camera is moving, we feel like the second part is not quite there. You feel like it doesn't look like a building really. You look at the end of the video, we have, I don't know what that arch is, and then we have that sort of element with the interior, and just doesn't really make sense. So the camera movement is great. The original image and the original project is actually quite good. Like it keeps the geometry, keeps the architecture. But then when it has to invent new stuff, it just feels like it's too much. But 5 minute generation video is quite impressive. And then again, I think my favorite is still Firefly on this example. The camera movement was straight away correct, and then it sort of invent that box, which I'm not a big fan of. I don't think it works very well either with the design I've done before or the brick building. So I think it's just a bit odd, this little box on the side, but it created, and then it created quite well. And then there's some interesting stuff happening inside that sort of reflect what's happened inside my original video. So I think overall it's quite interesting. The break is maintained also quite nicely and very sharp. So it's very impressive in terms of camera movement and prompt understanding for Firefly. Again, try to achieve organic architecture with artificial light coming from inside and sort of a early morning shot with probably around winter. There is also something very important in this image, is not only the form and the shape and how it's sculpted into that monolith, but it's also the texture that I really like, and I find it quite interesting. So it's interesting because looking back at it, I think I got it into like sort of, I wrote down timber, but it came out as concrete, and that actually make more sense in terms of architecture. So I really like that texture and that sort of concrete, and it feels like it's almost like wore off, like this, just the water ran out. So it just aged quite nicely. So it would be really nice if it aged like this. I'm not too sure if it would be the case, but anyway, that's the basic image, and that was done with Flux. And the first one we're gonna look at is probably my least favorite, and it's LTX 0.9.5. And so when we look at it, it actually sort of captures pretty well the geometry overall. Just all the details around the texture, and it sort of put a filter on it, and it's not quite nice. It just feels, everything feels very blurry. So that's why sort of the 0.9.5 is my least favorite. Now, if I go back to probably the one after is 4080p that I've done with WAN 2.1, which is when you look at it, same idea. It captured quite well the geometry. It just doesn't feel as accurate, like in terms of same idea texture, but also there's some like pixelization around the edge, and that's probably due to the resolution, but also it feels like the model doesn't quite get it. There's some interesting stuff though. There's people like walking in, which is quite nice, but it's just not quite the result I want. Now, as a summary, this one, the LTX was a couple of seconds, which was pretty ridiculous. The old LTX, and this one was about 8 minutes. Now, if we look at probably my third favorite, which is the new LTX 0.9.6 this time, and I think it just same idea. It captured very well the geometry. Nothing to say about it. There's just this line in between, in the middle of the texture that appears like sort of by the end of the video, which is quite interesting, but also weird and something I don't really want to. The resolution is quite nice actually, but again, I think we lose a bit of the texture. So it's slightly blurrier than the previous one, which is, it's okay, but it's just not quite there. But it's better, I found, than 2.1 4080p, which take about 8 minutes. So this one took only like, you know, between 4 minutes and 5 minutes, which is quite good. And the prompt adherence on this model is quite stunning. It's just you don't need a long prompt, and it just captures it straight away. So for your information, I almost use the same prompt for all the video I'm showing you there, and for all of them it was actually quite accurate. Now, moving on my probably number second in terms of favorite is WAN 2.1 in Q8 720. So it's still my favorite open source image for this example. Like, just keep the texture very well, the quality is nice, the camera movement is great. I mean, this is really good. The only downside is, again, the time and how long it takes. Now, my all-time favorite is Firefly, which is quite interesting. I love the texture. It actually insists it got even more texture than what I had to. So the contrast is even more relevant on this one than on the previous model. And I just love it. I think there's a lot more concretey texture into it. The color inside well represented. The animation, there's some stuff going on inside, but not too crazy. So definitely my favorite Firefly, again, number one. So here is the official page for LTX video. Here we have a couple of information, so a resolution update, frame per seconds update as well, and then a couple of interesting sort of prompt with results, which is can be very helpful to understand how the prompt is structured. And those are the updates. So I actually didn't really follow the guideline. I took a different way, so I highly recommend to follow this. But what I've done on mine is I actually download both of them. And I use the distilled workflow with dev, and I update the resolution and changing some of the settings. So I would love to know in the comment below if you think the results are way less good than the official one. To be perfectly honest with you, it wasn't out of arrogance. It was more just me testing it and see what comes out. And if you go to the workflow, so I had like this one here. I tested a bit. And I actually used for all the video and the test, I use this workflow here. So you can actually download it here if you just right click here and then save the link as, and then open it in Confi.ui. And you've got all the information here. I didn't change much of the components, but I will show you what I've done in Confi.ui. So in Confi.ui, actually, as I mentioned, I actually used the dev version here instead of the distilled version. So I should have used the distilled one for this specific workflow, but I try with a dev, and I wrote my prompt here, I upload my image, and then what I've done is actually I took another freedom, which is basically changing the resolution of the whole video based on my image input, which is not what is recommended. So if we look at this one here, it's recommended to sort of resize your image to make sure have the image but then resize the video to those settings. So I took a lot of freedom, and that might be the reason why I get the result I get, but I was quite amazed with that type of workflow. So I'm curious, let me know in your comment below what you think, and if you think it was a really bad idea to change all the settings, or if you think the results are actually quite interesting and they might be interesting to test. So I also plan to compare it with Sora, but unfortunately I didn't get the results I wanted to get. It seems that all the other ones are working on the same idea of prompt, but for some reason Sora doesn't quite work the same way. I'll do a separate video about Sora later on, as soon as I figured out how that works. So to conclude, I'm really liking the speed of LTX, even though the new one is slightly slower than the previous one, but I think it's definitely worth waiting. And also, I think in terms of performance, it's very close to Yunyan that I tested in a previous video. In terms of time, I think it's pretty much similar. LTX might be a bit faster, and in terms of quality as well. For one, I think it's much better than the 480p, but it doesn't compete with the 720p. But in terms of speed, we're talking about 5 minutes for LTX versus almost 50 minutes for 720p with 2.1, which is much faster. Unfortunately, the detail are lost a bit. But to summarize, like a couple of tips with LTX, if you think you could and you want to use it, for all the reasons above, I found that resizing the image wasn't very effective, like in Confi.ui when you just change the size. So it might be worth resize your image and then try to find a format that works with LTX, or match the format in LTX format of your image. That's what I've done for most of my videos, and I'm curious to see, if you see that one works better than the other. I'm curious to see. Put the comments, put your results in the comments, and I would love to hear from you and to know what's happening, or join the Discord and post some of the outcome. I will be really curious to see. About the prompt, I found that longer prompt generated by ChatGPT, so I asked ChatGPT to enhance my prompt and expand my prompt, and it never really got better results. Like, I tried it so many times, and as the GitHub page mentioned, the creator mentioned, it actually, his version improved a lot in terms of prompt understanding, and you don't need as long prompt as it used to for the previous version. And I think it's really true, and it works very well. So you don't really need to expand your prompt too much, which is really nice. And the prompt understanding is much better, I found, than any other model, maybe except Firefly, that was also quite impressively good on that front. If you enjoyed this video and you want to dive a bit deeper into the understanding of it, feel free to join the Patreon. I got all the files there, you can download them. And huge thanks for my current Patreon supporter. You guys are helping a lot, and thanks a lot. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe. If you found this video helpful, it helps a lot the channel and the YouTube algorithm to put the video out there for other people. Share it if you think it's interesting and could be helpful for other people. If you test it, just let me know in a comment below. I would be curious to know how you use it. If you use it for clients, for discussion, for internal review, all those type of things are quite cool to know. So just let me know, or flick me a message, or join the Discord, whatever is easier. I'm also on LinkedIn, so message me in there. And until next video,